Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part 2 of the Arthur sign. Now, I know that at the end of the last video I got a little bit loopy. It was late and I was finishing up and a lot of little mistakes happened. And the reality of it is I'm not apologizing, I'm clarifying. Often when we're doing this type of build, we're going to find that the beginning is great and towards the end we start running into unexpected things, and that happens. Now, the goal of the last video was to actually complete it, and then the goal of today's video is to make it laserable. But the reality of it is there are still some issues at hand. Let's do a quick review. Let me come over here, and I'm going to unlock all of my layers. Ooh, dangerous. Unlock all my layers, and let's take a look at them real fast. Let's start off with the base. Obviously, the base we don't have to cut. I've already cut my circle. But if I were to come over here to my mountain layer, grab my mountain, if you look, my mountain is 19.6 inches wide. It's also 15 inches tall. That will not fit on my Glowforge. So this piece over here is larger than my Glowforge, and that's going to be a problem. If I come over here to Arthur, oops, let me get back out of that circle. Let me lock the circle. If I come over here to the Arthur layer, is there anything on my Arthur layer, or did I delete it? Oh, I locked it inside the layer. There we go. If I come over here to my Arthur layer, well, that piece is only 8.7 inches wide. This will cut no problem. So Arthur is fine. But let's come over here and take a look at my trees. My trees are 19.4 by 12.5 inches, also larger than my Glowforge. Castle 1, 13 by 13.2 by 6.85. That'll fit on my Glowforge without a problem. And then lastly, we have this, which is 12.8 by 10.05, also will fit on my Glowforge. So many of these items will fit on my Glowforge without a problem. What that means is the other ones that won't fit on the Glowforge, I'm going to have to strategically start to slice them. Now, I can strategically slice them in several ways. The problem, of course, is if we just look, for instance, just at the green one, if I were to slice this in half, right, meaning that I would have 10 by 13 inches, if I were to slice this in half, you would start to see a seam there, and that seam would be a problem. Well, I don't want the seam to be a problem, so I have to figure this one out. Now, I joked about this in the previous video that perhaps I was going to add some sort of a shrub to cover up the seam. At one point, I thought about putting a seam here and a seam here. I don't think a shrub is the right answer. Actually, what made me really start to think about this, and I realized that this is partly still design, but it is going to go back to this idea of what will fit on the Glowforge and what won't. What I need to do is I need to make sure that I complete the composition. So how am I going to complete this composition? Well, I realize that what my composition is missing is a moat and a drawbridge. And both of those are going to come and help me here. Now let's come over here and we're going to start off with the moat, which of course will be, well, where will the moat be? It'll be above the trees and below the castle. So let's make a new layer and we're going to call it the moat. Now what is the moat going to look like? The moat is going to be an oval, or an ellipse as they call it. Let's come over here, everything else is locked, and let's make some sort of an ellipse on my moat. Now, I haven't decided exactly how big the moat's going to be yet. I do know that it's going to be blue when I paint it. And I come over here, and now reality of it is I want my moat to be probably all the way out front. It would be nice to cover all of this. But I also need to make sure that it's down low enough that I can see what's going on, that I know that's going to fit on my Glowforge. Let me lock the moat layer for a moment and talk about the idea of what will fit on my Glowforge. I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to call this sort of my Glowforge guide. I'm going to put it up all the way on the top. Now, how big does the Glowforge cut? Now, the Glowforge, as you know, it will hold a piece of wood. I think it's like 12 by 18. I think depending on which Glowforge you have, there's a little modifications to that. For the most part, however, I'm cutting my wood about 11 by 14 is for the most part what I'm cutting my wood. So I'm going to come over here and say 14 inches by 11 inches is about the piece of wood that I'm going to be working with. That's my reference shot. Now, I know that actually I can go to 18 inches, but I think most of my wood's already cut to 14. So if I have to, I'll do something later on. So now I have this piece over here, and I have to ask myself what will fit. And I'm like, uh-oh, 14 isn't going to do it. So maybe I'm going to have to find a longer piece of wood, maybe a 16-inch piece of wood. And again, I'm going to keep asking myself, is that going to fit? And I'm like, okay, that's going to fit. The reason this is important is like if I come over here and I grab my moat for a moment, I can grab my moat and I can lower it down. And the more I lower my moat down, the more likely it's going to fit on my piece of wood. Remember, from a design perspective, let's hide this for a moment. From a design perspective, I only need the moat to kind of take a little bit of a dip around the back of the castle, kind of make it look like it's going around that way. Does that make sense? Good. So there's my moat. My moat looks good. Of course, we remember how, first of all, is my moat centered? It is not. Of course, we're going to center my moat. There it is, nice and centered. And I am going to subtract it from everything else. Now, this is a really, really tricky one, because when I do subtract the moat from everything else, you have to ask yourself, where is this going to go, right? And I really mean that. We know that it's going to be the castle on top of the castle. Is the moat another layer up? Is the moat on top is the moat on the same layer as the castle, or is the moat on the same layer as the trees? This is a really, really challenging one for us, because it is going to define how we're doing the next layer. If the moat is on the same layer as the trees, then I'm going to cut the moat out of the trees, and it'll be blue oval with green on top. If I want the moat to be in front of it, that means the moat is going to be on the same layer as the lower castle, which means I'm going to cut it out of the other one, and then the upper castle is going to be the one that has the thing. I think that's going to be the right way. So the reality of it is the moat is going to be a piece that kind of fits underneath this castle here. And for me to do that, now I really want to actually go put that Glowforge guide back on, because I may sit here and say, is this going to be low enough? Maybe make it a little higher. That looks pretty good to me. And again, if I have to get a bigger piece of wood, I will. Remember, I can go much larger. I just am thinking about what kind of pieces I already have. All right, hide my Glowforge guide, come over here. And what I need, of course, is a copy of my circle. Remember my circle? I'm going to put it over here above my moat. Beautiful. Put it above my moat, unlock it. And like we did the last time, remembering everything else is locked, I'm going to go to Object and Path, Divide Objects Below, which of course is going to chop everything up. Now I can delete my circle, and I can delete the outer part of my moat. Now, isn't that a beautiful composition? That makes me very happy. It's kind of got this water moat floating thing here. Now, the problem, of course, is I've got some other design elements that I'm going to have to put into place before I cut this out more. What do I mean by that? Well, as much as I like my moat, I really want to make sure that there isn't something going to be I don't want this to be blue in here. I want there to be some sort of a shape in here. Now, let's come over here and turn off the top castle, because let me turn off everything that I don't need right now. What do I mean by that? Well, let's be really practical. Right now, this is the layer I'm working on. It is a layer of the castle, and it is a layer of the water. These two are going to be interlocked together. Now, if that's the case, let's take a look over here at this little piece over here, right? Because what I want is something to be underneath it. I want to cut out so that this is not blue. This is going to be, let's say, black. Now, technically, I could leave it as is, and she could just cut it. But reality of it is I just paint it. But I really like the idea that whatever is here is its own shape. So I have to be very careful about this, because as I go to put all this together, I need to make sure that everything looks good. Now, when I say looks good, again, I'm on the moat layer. Let's make another layer. I'm going to call this my doorway layer. And for my doorway layer, I really have to define what the doorway is going to be. Now, again, for the most part, I only need to define it enough. Yeah, I only need to define it enough that I can kind of mask this over. Now, I can try doing this with an oval. I could try doing this with straight lines. There's a lot of ways I can do this. It really depends on how I want to sort of connect the dots here, because I really want to make sure that this whole area has a nice flow to it. So many questions at the moment. Let's take a look to see what we can do with an ellipse. And I'll make it a black ellipse, just because that seems to be the best shape for what I'm going to do. All right. See how nice that will work? But the trick for me is, can I get that bottom shape to really match the way I want it to do? And the way that's going to work is I got to really stretch it out and bring it over so I get the curve that I'm aiming for. So I get that nice doorway. Yeah. So yeah, that's much nicer. All right. So that'll be what it'll be. Now let me zoom out for a moment. So what am I saying here is that I'm saying is that this one piece of wood is going to have the castle with the doorway. Now we can see where the doorway is. We're like, oh yeah, that's the only part of the doorway I need. The castle with the doorway and the water. This is all the same piece of wood. That means I can actually probably start to modify the castle now that I know where the doorway is. And actually, I'm going to actually slice all these together in a minute. Let's come over here and unlock this castle and realize that I have wasted quite a bit of data, as in quite a bit of curves. And I can come over here and I can grab this anchor and I can delete it. And I can grab this anchor and I can delete it. Oh yeah. I can grab that anchor and I can delete it. Be very careful about the anchors that you didn't mean to delete. Now, undo. Remember, you click the anchor and then you bring it up. And you click the anchor and then you bring it up. So I can come over here and... Now, I want to be very careful because what I don't want to do is make shapes that are very difficult for me to put together for no apparent reason. What do I mean by that? Well, I don't need this blue to be that blue. I don't need to. In other words, I need this black to be there, and I need this blue to be there. But this I can do whatever I want, which takes us back to live painting. Remember live? Oh yes, live painting. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab these three objects. Object, live paint, make. Excellent. Then I'm going to grab my live paint to bucket, and I'm going to paint right in there. Now I have a shape. Now I have a shape there, and now I have a shape there. Beautiful. Object, live paint, expand. Now I have all these weird little pieces there. But remember, wait, no, they're all on the same. They're all on the same page, but I'm okay with that. And now that I have done that, have I done that already? Am I good to go? 1, 2, 3. Oh yes, look at that. I have all sorts of grouped pieces here. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to take the pieces that are grouped and I'm going to do fun things with them. Hide the blue. Hide the black. See what I have? That's one piece, one piece, one piece, one piece. All right, good. So I have all these pieces together. Select them all. Come over to my next favorite tool, my shape builder tool, and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Oop, not that piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm left with 3 pieces, which is exactly what I wanted. And notice the 3 pieces are no longer overlap, right? They all interlock. I have my blue piece, my black piece, and my gray piece. The reality of it is, by the way, there is no black piece. This black piece will just be cut out when those lines get cut out. We actually have to be careful because we're going to double cut some of these lines if we're not careful, but we'll get back there when we clean things up later on. So now we have this beautiful situation going on here. We're going to call that, we're still calling it Castle 1. The reality of it is it's really just a layer, but I'm going to break it up a little bit because that's the way I am. So we're going to leave the castle there. I'm going to take my doorway. Oops. I'm going to take my doorway and I'm going to cut it. And what did I remember? What did I teach you about cutting? Go back to your layers. And then I come over here, doorway, and I can edit, paste in place. Beautiful. Lock that layer. And I can come over here to my moat, double click to get inside the layer, double click to select the layer, edit, cut, and then back my way out of the layers. Back, come over here to my moat and edit, paste in place, and I can lock that one. So I have my moat and my doorway and my castle, which has been triply embedded into groups, which I can, of course, remember. We had this conversation as well. Ungroup, and there you go. So we have everything that we need, and the beautiful part of it is they are all interlocked on the same layer. Ha ha ha. Very nice. And of course, there are my trees underneath it. My trees are going to be underneath it, so I don't have to worry about that. And this castle is going to be on top of it, and everything looks beautiful there. Is everything beautiful there? Yeah, everything's beautiful there. So, I'm feeling still very, very good about my new composition. Lastly, let's double check to see how big that moat is actually. I click on it, we find out that it's 15 inches by 4 inches. So 15.2 inches. Do I have a piece of wood that big? Well, if I don't, I'll make sure I have one. I'm sure I do, by the way. It's usually my 11 inches is my limitation. Usually I have wood that goes anywhere between 16 and 18 inches. I kind of keep that round in the house. Kind of amazing how nice that is. Of course, what ends up happening is now when the time comes, since the blue will print by itself and the black will cut by itself and all these pieces will cut by itself, the trees, which will not cut by itself, I can put a slice right down the middle. I can slice the trees down the middle, no problem. And the mountain, I can't slice that down the middle, but there are other tricks that I can do when we get there to where I will slice the mountain, but we're not going to do that just yet. We'll save that. All right, so we're very happy with our composition so far. So as we go through this, the author back on. So as we go through this, and I'm missing one last element, let's take a look at what we're talking about here. We have the 20-inch wood round, layer 0. Layer 1 is the mountain, 2 color mountains, and Arthur and its template. Layer 2 is the trees. Layer 3 is the castle, the doorway, and the moat. And layer 4 will be the castle and the drawbridge when I get to the drawbridge. And somewhere in there we'll put spacers to make the piece fall up, make the tower stand up. So far so good? Good. Excellent. Let me try doing that last piece. That last piece I need, which will technically be the same layer as our... It'll be the same layer as Castle 2, but we'll get back to that in a minute. And we're going to call this a drawbridge. What does a drawbridge look like? I've been to many, many castles, by the way, so I know exactly what a drawbridge looks like. A drawbridge looks like a rectangle that has been widened via perspective. So I could come over here, and I will start by drawing me a rectangle and making it brown. Very good. Maybe I'll put it there for a moment. All right, so there's my drawbridge. Not very exciting yet, but it will be in a moment as I decide how to move it this way. So I will grab the anchor, click it twice so I can bring it in, grab it over there, too far over. I'm going to bring it to right there. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to bring it to right there. All right, so that looks almost pretty good. And then I can come over here and I can... Now, in terms of there's skewed tools that you can do, but I'm actually going to cheat. And I'm going to cheat by coming over here. And I've decided that maybe I'm going to put it like this. I'm going to put these two pieces together so they're lined up nicely. And then instead of skewing, all I'm going to do is just sort of use this as a guide and go, I want this out to here. And I want this out to here. And then I can delete this. And then I can decide how far in to put that. Now, the fun thing about this is I could leave it like that. I can do one of two things. Is I can completely round it up, or I could actually have it sticking off the edge. It's kind of an interesting thing. I think for our purposes, I'll just take a look to see what it looks like, but I have a feeling I'm going to actually cut it round. I think we're going to keep the integrity of the round in place. So we know what we do. If we're happy with everything else, we come over here, we duplicate the circle, we put it on top of our drawbridge, we unlock it, everything else is locked, we grab our circle, we do what we did before, which would be object, path, divide below, beautiful, And now we have this piece that I can grab of the drawbridge, and I can delete it. Yeah, it's much better as a circular piece, very inviting. And I can come over here and I can delete this. Now, the problem we're going to run into is that these pieces overlap, and I don't need them to overlap. I need them to intersect, so I have to subtract one from the other. All right. I'm looking to see if it's straight. That's all I'm doing real fast. Best way to do that is to bring in a guide. Oh, it is not straight. Look at that. Look at me and my screw up. Not a problem. Grab the guide. Grab the anchor. Luckily my snap is on, so it should snap to the guide. Interestingly enough, it's not. But the cool thing is I can look at this and say, that's 10.432. I'm sorry, that's 19.104. And that's 19. So I can come over here and say 0.104. And now the two of them match. There you go. I know they're centered, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, there you go. If you ever want to get rid of a guide, by the way, all you have to do is pick it up and move it. And it's gone. Or no, I think in Illustrator you can just delete them. That's right. In Photoshop you have to drag them away. So if I want to keep this last little bit of curve on my, I want to make sure I cut this out so that it fits nicely. I'm going to duplicate my castle layer. Duplicate my castle layer. Bring it down over here. Unlock it. And we're just going to get rid of those little edges by going Object, Divide Objects Below. Wait, I don't have an object selected? Yes, I do. All right, let's try it again. Edit. I didn't read my error message very well. More than one object is selected. Is that true? I don't think it's true. Let's try it again. Let's go inside of it. Ah, yes, because it had the little holes in there. All right, fine with that. Let's see what it did to my... Did it do anything good to my piece? It did not do what I wanted to do, but that's okay. So it did not do what I wanted it to do because this castle is made up of negative spaces and it doesn't like the negative spaces. So we will fix that, and we'll fix it. Actually, we actually kind of did just fix it by going over here and double clicking on it. When I said, yeah, I can delete the. I'm going to delete the windows first, so it's happier. Remember, this is just our guide layer, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so if I come back over here and I grab this, now if I come over here and say Object, Divide Objects Below, no error message. What was that? I'm going to put these two on the same layer and figure out what the hell that was. That was interesting. There we go. Get rid of all the layers. All right, so the only thing that's locked, I've got my two layers. I grab this layer, zoom in. Now, this, I'm not embarrassed by this happening. This is going to happen to you as well. You're going to go, what happened? Undo. What happened? Undo. It happens to everybody. All right, divide objects below, and that made a wonky groups of paths. I have no idea what just happened here. But I will take it because I can put it back together. All right. What it means is I can come over here and I can delete that and that. And, did not curve them. Oh, yes, it did. There they are. There's my little cutouts. Just because it was unexpected does not mean that I'm going to freak out about it. Object, oops, get out, right? Object ungroup. And instead of calling this Castle 2 copy, we will call this a drawbridge. And of course, when we turn the castle on, it should perfectly fit in place, and it does, because it's a perfect fit in place. So zoom out and let's hit save. So, voila. So it took about a half an hour to finish up what I was doing yesterday, which was to create the perfect image. And by the way, this is the perfect image. I can't tell you this file, but I can make one for you. All right, now that I've done this, I have to go through and play another game. File. I've already saved it. I'm happy with this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to save as. And I'm going to save as is I'm going to make another copy of this. So instead of Arthur Circle Final, it's going to be Arthur Circle Final Cut Me. And this is going to be where we start thinking about the items that we need to cut. Now remember, most of these items are going to be fine, right? We know that, and right now, if I go through and I unlock them all, yeah, that's right, I'm going to unlock them all, except for the base. If I go through and unlock them all, I realize that this piece will fit on my Glowforge. 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 That'll be a challenging one, I think, but I think I have the wood for it. This piece, however, will not fit on my Glowforge. It's 13 inches by 19 inches. Now remember, I'm trying to aim for around 11 inches by something else. So how do I make it fit? Well, this is where I'm going to start to play a couple of little games as I decide what pieces need to go where. Let's take a look. Remember, no matter what happens, I need the wood. But let's ask ourselves, where does this end? Remember, I want all of this to be solid, but where does it really end? So we're going to focus on the trees first, since that's the first layer that's giving us some grief. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a guide where the trees end. That's good. I'm going to put another guide where the trees end. That's good as well. I'm going to put another guide where the trees end, and that's good as well. So now that I've done that, let's bring up my Glowforge guide. Now my Glowforge guide, this is just a box that I made that is, again, 11 by 16. Let me rotate it. And ask myself, is this box... Oh yeah, that box is great, right? That box 11 by 16. So 11 inches is not a problem, and 16 inches is not a problem. Matter of fact, if you really take a look at this, I could just divide that straight down the middle and fit, right? I don't need to do much more than anything else, because 11 by 16 is fine. Matter of fact, I can even go lower than that. So I kind of overdid it, right? I just said, wait a second. All I got to do is split this layer in half. Split the layer in half to one side, split the layer in half to the other side, and I will be good to go. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to split my layer in half. How am I going to split my layer in half? Well, there are multiple ways of doing it. Let's, by the way, lock everything back into place again. Let's be helpful. Lock everything back into place again. And I'm going to make a layer where I'm going to put in a box. And again, there are multiple ways of razoring. I just love doing it this way. It just works so well. I create this box over here. It's right there. Object, path, divide objects below. And if I come over here, what I should find is that my trees are now in a whole bunch of things. It's so fun. Let's delete that. Let's delete these guides. And what we find is oops, I unlocked. I meant to turn them off, not to lock them. What we find is, I turn them off, is that I now have these two boxes, and this one here. Stop that. This one here is 9.6 by 12, easily fits in the Glowforge. This one here is 9.8 by 12, easily fits in the Glowforge. Hallelujah! The shapes are good. We continue. So, We're actually going through this quite well. Or I can lock that one, leave it alone. So far, so good. Let's turn our layers back on again and talk about the last layer that actually matters to me, which is going to be the mountain. Let's unlock the mountain for a second. Now, my mountain is really big. My mountain is 19 inches by 15.13 inches, which is way too big. So let's go back and start thinking about how we can cut the mountain up. Well, the easy one to cut the mountain up with is to put in this guide right here, right? Actually, can I even go above it? Yeah, right there. No, because we got the little thing over there. Yeah, I don't want to do that one. I don't want to do that one. So I'm gonna have to do it down here. So if I were to come over here and put in a guide down here, that's going to create a shape that I can work with. How big is that? Well, it's not very big, so I can worry about that later. Let's of course come over here and grab our Glowforge box for a moment. Let us rotate it and realize that easily one half and the other half will fit in my Glowforge. The other good news is that we now know that I can actually get this to fit in my Glowforge too, right? That top half will fit, or that top half will fit, but not the entire thing, right? So the bottom half I can cut in half. It'll be invisible because that brown is something else. Matter of fact, to indicate that, let's come over here to my Drawbridge real fast, and let's make that a very dark brown so we can tell that we're talking about something else. Aesthetics. All right, so come over here. So we know that if I were to cut the bottom of this off and split it in half, it would easily fit on the Glowforge. So we've got that going for us. But the top, if I cut that in half, you will notice it, right? That's the problem. Is no matter where I cut it, you will notice it. So I've got to figure out how to cut this where you won't notice it. And let's take a look. So where can I cut the Glowforge? Where can I cut the mountain where you won't notice it? Now there's some interesting news here. There's both good and bad news. These are actually going to be floating. So technically, if there's a seam right here or even right here, you will be able to see it from an off angle. I'm willing to sacrifice that. I'm not really too worried about it, but it is something to think about as you go forward. So I could also think about sort of other ways of cutting it to make it sort of look interesting as well. So as we do this, I can bring in some guides if I needed to, but to remind myself where it's safe to cut. But before I do that, let's just get rid of the bottom part. Let's make the bottom part easy enough to work with. So I have this bottom piece. Let's come over here and bring in, oops, let me lock that layer. Let's bring in another guide. So now we have a guide right up the mountain. So what I want to do is I want to divide up the bottom of my circle in half. So I'm going to come over here to my mountain, and I'm going to create a big old rectangle. Beautiful. That's my big old rectangle. Let's take a look where it is. There's my rectangle. And then I can say object, path, provide objects below. If you look over here, now you have this new path, which is the bottom of the mountain. So I'll bring that to the bottom. There's my bottom of my mountain. And then I am going to make a new layer. There we go. Come over here and there we go. So there is my path. I'm going to lock my mountain for a second. I don't need to see it. And we'll do this again on layer 13, which is the bottom of my mountain. Come back over here. We have another rectangle. Object, path, provide objects below. And if you look over here, you're going to see now we have mountain bottom. And we've got two paths there. And it's kind of nice, makes my life really easy. I've got the left side of my mountain, which is now 6 by 9, and the right side of my mountain, which is now 6 by 9. Hallelujah. So now I can put that away for now. I can I'm done with that, and I can go to the top of my mountain and see what I have left. What do I have left? Notice, by the way, I've not moved anything. I've not moved anything, and I've never even removed any layers yet because I don't want to lose my alignment levels. I'd rather visualize things on this side of the screen and not have to worry about it than to come back later and go, uh-oh. So that means if I needed to, yeah, I could turn all this off just to see what I've been doing. There they are. There they are. Right, I can see what I've been doing, and I could come over to my mountain layer and say, all right, what am I really holding? And I can say, oh, it's 19 inches by 9 inches. Well, at least it'll fit on the Glowforge, but it's not going to fit in the right spot just yet. I have so many different ways that I would love to do this. It really just depends on how this castle comes into play here. It really does. And the reason that becomes an issue is because there's some really cool things you can do, but you've got this damn window here. I've also got to make sure that when I cut things, I don't cut things that'll screw it up with my negative space or my second color piece. But that's what I'm looking at, is how do I get these two pieces resolved? Because this one is irrelevant, right? It's pretty much, where am I going to cut? What I don't want to do is cut down the middle. So I'm going to bring up another layer, which is going to be our cutting layer. Everything else allows us to see what's going on. But I will come over to this castle here, and to make it a little bit easier, I will just make it lines, so I can always see that outline there. There we go, nice little 2-point outline there. I can lock that into place, so when I'm deciding what to do, I can kind of see what I'm being left with as I go forward. So, where am I going to cut? Where am I going to cut? This is a live conversation right now. Where am I going to cut? And again, I've got this window, so I don't want to cut behind the window. I could cut. If I cut to this side, that'll screw up that. But of course I can move that, because this is really arbitrary. So the question is could I come over here, make sure I'm on my layer 14. Could I come over here, cut there, and there. The rest of this is me being silly, because there and there, I'm drawing a polygon by just connecting the dots, and all I got to do is make sure that the dots are bigger than my mountain. Alright, so that's going to be my polygon. That's going to be where we cut the mountain out. At least I think that's going to be where we cut the mountain out. Which means that behind this will be sort of this thing, and then I'm going to come over here and fix this sliver, because that sliver is going to be a problem for me in a little bit. So what I need to do is zoom in. Matter of fact, I'm going to grab all the lines here, and I'm going to make them really small. It will be easier to work with there. There we go. Alright, so let's take a look at our mountain. Our mountain, how we're going to cut our mountain out. And again, we're going to do this by thinking, if this is the real cut line, I'm going to put it over here. Because I've got snap turned on, I'll snap to where it intersects, and that's good over here. The same thing over here. I can bring this over here, and I can snap to where it intersects, and now this line is continuous with this line, and that should give me a nice clean line. And it doesn't mess with my composition too much, right? No. Let's come back over here and put our lines back on so we can see them. And you can see that when this cuts, that's where the cut will be. Just this little piece over here will just slide into place. And that makes me happy. Now, let's get to cleaning it up now that I've done that. I'm going to hide this, and I really need to turn, let me even turn off the mountain for a moment. I need to turn this into an actual shape, right? Because right now they're just lines, and I want to turn it into a shape. There are multiple ways of turning lines into a shape, but one of the simplest ways of doing it is you grab everything, you say live paint, make, grab your paint bucket and fill it. Uh-oh. Oh, that's right. I filled it, but with nothing. Come over here and fill it. There you go. I filled it. Then I come over here and I grab the whole thing again. Object, live paint, expand. And now I have an object. I also have a whole bunch of other things, remember? I'm going to have all this crazy group stuff. I'm going to have the lines in one group, which I don't need anymore. And I'm going to have the shape in the other. Wait for the computer to catch up with itself without killing myself. And then, of course, I have crazy groups, and we know what to do in that case. We just hit ungroup until there's nothing left to ungroup. And that is going to be my shape that I'm going to subtract from my mountain. And we know what to do here. We are confident about what to do here. I come over here and I say object. Remember what to do. Path. Divide objects below. And look at that. It is perfect. I now have mountain part 1 and mountain part 2. And I'm going to delete the empty layer. And now I'm going to delete my guides. And now I'm going to start to really put this all together. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure that everything I have is turned on and unlocked. All right. Let's make this castle gray again. Beautiful. Let's grab everything and let's turn off all the locks. Get rid of our Glowforge guide. We don't need that for a few minutes. Let's grab everything and put a nice big stroke on everything as 1 point stroke, and take a look at what we've got one more time and say, yes, this makes me happy. Save. All right. I could work on this file again, but I'm not. I'm actually going to work in another file just because I'm going to do the Final Cut layers, and because vector vase files are small. Final Cut Me layers. All right. Now, lots of work to do here. First thing I need to do is say goodbye to the things that I don't need anymore, right? Don't need the mountain backup in this file. Nope. Don't need a spot for later in this file. Nope. You know what I also don't need in this file? My circle. My base is gone. I no longer need my circular base because that's already cut. So now I've got to ask myself the other question, and that is, what does my document setup look like? Right now, if I go to edit my artboards, I set my artboards up to be 22 inches by 22 inches. But my Glowforge is not 22 inches by 22 inches. My Glowforge is usually set up as 18 inches by 11 inches. That's usually the size that I'm working with. And so that's what I'm going to make my artboards set to. And now that I've done that, I come back over to my tool. Now I realize that this is what I'm aiming at. Everything else I've got, I'm very happy with. But now I'm going to have some fun. Ooh, mountain bottom. That's mountain bottom. So now the goal is just to optimize how much I'm doing cutting-wise and to make sure that everything is going to fit where it needs to fit. All right. So I'm going to start by making brand new layers. And we're going to start off by going layer 1. Right? Layer 1, which is basically going to be, what am I going to be working on layer 1? Well, you know what I'm going to do with on layer 1? I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cut. Why is Castle 2 invisible? I don't know why Castle 2. I don't know why it's not showing up there, but there it is. Okay, so layer 1, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to rotate it, I'm going to put it over here, and that is going to be layer 1. Beautiful. So that's layer 1. As a matter of fact, I can cut it, go to layer 1, edit, paste in place, and there's my layer 1. I no longer need my castle layer. Beautiful. What else will fit on layer 1? Well, what about the doorway? The doorway will fit on layer 1. Cut that, put it on layer 1, paste that. Does it have to be where it is? No, put that wherever it's going to fit. Put it right over there. This is the fun part about cutting. It's going to be efficient here, but I'm going to do it like that. Great. What about my drawbridge? My drawbridge will fit, right? My drawbridge will fit right over there. So I'll cut that, and we'll go to layer 1, edit, paste in place. Beautiful. There's my drawbridge all ready to go. Great. Next. Now the fun part is later on I'm going to need some spacers, but the good news is I'm going to be able to use the holes from the windows as spacers. So I can grab one of these and one of these and put it under here, one of these and one of these and put it under here, and that's enough of a spacer for me. All right, what else do I need? Well, my castle's not going to my castle's not going to fit on this page, and my moat's not going to fit on this page. My trees aren't going to fit on this page. Arthur, will Arthur fit on the page? Arthur will fit on the page. All right, fine. Arthur, you win. So I will cut you, and I will edit, paste in place. There you go. Arthur fits on the page for now. Technically, if I was going to do these in bulk, I'd probably put Arthur on another layer just so I wouldn't have to worry about like messing with the actual art page. But right now, since no one's bought one of these but Arthur, who's a baby and hasn't been born yet, I'm not really worried about it. All right. So now what about our mountain? Nope, not those, and definitely not those. All right. So good. So I come over here. I can delete those. And I can come over here, and the last thing I'm going to do with layer 1 is I'm going to grab all of layer 1, and I am going to say that it is clear, it is black. I'm actually going to call blue, and I'm going to say 0.25 point. So this is the first piece of wood I will cut, and I will lock it, and I will hide it, and I will do it all again. Let's take a look at the castle, this castle piece here. Now, is anything else going to fit on that same piece of wood? Maybe? Let's take a look. Let's be a little crazy here. I will rotate 40, I will rotate 90, I will rotate 90, and I will rotate 180, but I will never rotate more than that. Technically, I could do it, but I don't think I'm going to. Technically, I could do it, but I don't think I'm going to. I don't know if I have wood that's this long, so I'd rather just not do that right now. How about some of my trees? Are any of my trees going to fit here? No, not at all. Nope. How about my mountain bottoms? No, not at all. How about my mountain top? No, not at all. No. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I made a mistake, and I made it a while ago. See it? That's terrible. I can fix it, but ooh, that bothers me. So all I got to do is come over here and undo until my mountaintops are back together. Oh my God, I can't believe I made that mistake. That is a terrible mistake. It's not a devastating mistake, it's just a terrible mistake. I'll have to fix that later. All right, so there's nothing that'll fit on this piece of wood except for this castle. So I will set it to be transparent with a red stroke of 0.25. Don't worry, I know what to do. Oops, sorry. A red stroke of not a yellow stroke, a red stroke of 0.25. Transparent in the middle, and we will call this layer 2. Great. Next, lock it and move on to the moat. All right, moat's over here. Anything going to fit on the same layer as the moat? One of those. I'll take it. Cut and edit, paste in place. All right. How about the trees? Nope. Mountain. It would if I fixed it. All right. Let's fix the mountain while I'm at it. So what did I do to screw up here? Let's take a look very, very carefully. It's actually not as bad as all that. if you look very carefully, what you'll notice is, let me come over here to the mountain layer and get rid of the fill, set the stroke to be 0.25, and what you'll notice is that when I cut the mountain top, I wasn't very careful about it, and I created this really weird secondary shape. And the reason I did that is that technically this shape here has a point that goes all the way out, because this one doesn't come all the way down. So all I got to do is grab this point and bring it all the way down. Make sure I'm on the point, and I can bring it all the way down. Grab this point and bring it all the way down. All right, so that's pretty good. And then over here, I can grab this point over here and I can delete it. And I think that would be it. I'll find out in a moment when I move it over. And if I move it over and it's wrong, I'll have to move it back, right? Right, so that's a straight line now. I just need to come over here and delete that point. Oops. I have to come over here now and bring that point back over there, except that didn't grab the point. Let's grab the anchor over here. And now I think I can grab this anchor and delete it. Yeah, there we go. So now I have that shape and I have this shape, and they should interlock together. And if there's any sliver off, I'm not going to be the end of the world here. All right. So I fixed what was broken. Please double check that your lines line up when your lines are lining up. There you go. Next. The funny part is every place it didn't line up would have been behind another piece of wood. This is just to make me happy. Put my moat back up. Is this going to fit on the same page? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Definitely going to come over here. Paste in place. Hi. Come over here, cut that. Hide that layer, and paste in place on the right layer. So now I have this shape over here, and I'm going to grab all of these shapes, and I'm going to say no fill, and now you're going to be green, green, and 0.25 points. Beautiful. And that will be layer 3. Wonderful. Lock that baby. My trees. They are both not going to fit over here. So let's make a new layer, which we will call layer 4. And let's take the first set of trees, cut, and edit, paste in place. Grab this layer, rotate it 90 degrees, and that's all that's going to fit there. Because I don't think this mountain is going to fit on the same page. It will not. Will I get lucky, and will this fit on the same page? Answer is no. Not like that. It may fit on the other one. So undo, hide. I think this is all, that's all that's going to fit there right now. There's no other strategic thing I can do here. Just call it a day. So I'm going to call this one a no fill. And I'm going to make this one an orange stroke. And it's going to be 0.25 as well. And beautiful. There's your little orange stroke. Lock that into place. There you go. Now we bring this tree up here. And let's take a look. Let's rotate this tree like this. And ooh, yay, they fit. Look at that. Look at that. It's like a puzzle. Cut that. Edit. Paste in place. Same layer. Grab everything. No fill. Just a nice stroke of purple. That will be 0.25. And that will be layer 5. So our mountain bottoms are done. Oops. And that brings me to my mountain. Now, I save this layer for last because it's going to be the most grief if I'm not careful. I think I was careful though. What do I mean by being careful? Well, let's come over here and take a look. And what we want to do is ask ourselves, is there any overlap? You usually can tell if there's overlap if something is a dark line. In other words, if there was two shapes, I don't want to do is I don't want to cut any line out twice. So what I don't want to do is cut this line out twice because it showed up twice. So if I hit delete, if it gets a gap, I'm good. That's good. Let's come over here on this one. If I hit delete, if there's a gap, I'm good. That's good. So what I'm looking for, usually what ends up happening is you see like a darker line if something's on top of it, especially if you're in a 0.25. But I think I was well behaved along the way. Let me explain what I mean. If I have a box like this, right, and I have a box like this, they both look fine. But if I were to come over here and put the boxes on top of each other, right, now that line here is going to get cut once and then get cut twice. And if you zoom in, you start to notice, well, if you zoom out, you start to notice a little bit of a darkening there. And then you have to compensate for it, right? As in going through and deleting the line so it's no longer a shape. There you go. But I don't have to. And I can call this layer 6. Voila. Now that I've called this layer 6, I can toggle that, and I can have my black layer, my purple layer, my orange layer, my green layer, my red layer, and my blue layer. Ta-da! Saved. All ready for my Glowforge. But wait! There's more. Why did I save it all in the same file? Why did I change all the colors? Why? Well, what I want to do is I don't want to have 6 different files here. I want to make my life as easy as possible. And when you're working in Adobe Illustrator, creating layers is great. But when you're working in SVG files, the layers are delimited by color. That's why I'm doing it this way. Let me come over here. I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to open up this in Glowforge. All right, so what I want to tell you before I go forward is this is an Illustrator file. Number one problem people have is, how do I get from Illustrator to SVG? And the answer is there's 150 ways of doing it, but only one that works flawlessly. But before we do that, let's double check each of our layers to see if we have any weird groups, because we don't want to have any groups in here. We want paths, but we don't want any groups. Oh, there's a group. There's the one group left. What is the group? It's the Arthur group. So let me come over here and let me grab and ungroup that. I really don't want to have any groups when I'm doing this. All right, good. Save this. Now, some people are going to hit all sorts of ways of getting SVG, but the best way is File, Save a Copy. Not save as, save a copy, and then you save that as an SVG. Seriously, that's the way this works. You hit save. All of this is irrelevant because there's no more fonts, there's no more images, there's no more anything. Literally, you leave these as follows and it'll work just fine. That's the fun part about this. That's why you work slowly ahead of time and you make your exports work well. You ready for Glowforge? Ta-da! Glowforge! Yay! Create. Upload from file. Where did I put that? I put that would be Arthur Circle Cut Me Layers Copy SVG. Yeah, that's the last one I just made. And we're going to wait for it to upload. It takes a little bit of time to upload because it's a pretty good thing. Pay no attention to all my Pokemon stuff. And here it is. Everything ready to go on a single piece of wood. My Glowforge is off at the moment, which is fine. But what you'll find is because my layers are on the same layer, I could come over here and I can say ignore, 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 ignore. And then when the time is right, I can say, cut that one next, cut that one next. And I don't have to go in and out of any files. They're just there for you to play with. And this, in a very, very large nutshell, is how I work in Illustrator and Glowforge. and how I put these things together. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know at times I ramble a little bit. I did this as live as I could. Matter of fact, the entire project, except for what's in my mind, the fact that I did it once before, was done live. There's no edits here. I only pause it once to bring up my web browser. So here you go. How I do it. Are there better ways of doing it? Absolutely. No way there isn't. I learn things all the time. I'm sure you're learning things all the time as well, and I hope you found this useful. If you did find this useful, please go ahead, follow me, JaredX2, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, Patreon, whatever you like. Also, if you're thinking about buying a Glowforge, go ahead and message me, and I'll give you my code, and you'll get a discount. I'll get a credit. It's all good for everybody. I'm a big fan. Thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed these tutorials. One last thing, eventually, because I haven't even cut this yet, tomorrow I will cut it. Sometime this weekend we'll paint it. We'll probably post a follow-up at that point. Thanks, and good night.